4 records set by the 2 players that were eliminated on Judgment Night, Cross being eliminated with the most points and the best goal differential. And on the other side of things, Glen Durrant being eliminated with the lowest points and worst goal differential. But where do the 2 go from here?
Well, we'll start with Rob Cross. And I've been defending Cross a lot this year. And I think in the end, in the Premier League, it got, after losing to Gary Anderson at the start of the week, it didn't go right for him. And he never found his game for the rest of the week. But then you look at what happened at the Super Series in Germany, there are a lot of promising signs, and those same signs that we had seen at the start of the Premier League campaign, the same signs that we've seen for much of this year, that Rob Cross is on his way back to playing at a top 10 level. He's up to 22nd in the averages in the Players' Championship events. He was around 30th at the start of the week, had a run to the quarterfinals in the third event out of 4 in Germany, including some good wins, beating Alan Suter, who's been one of the players of the year so far in the first round, beating Kim Hybrex with nearly a 105 average in the board final, before going out in a last leg decider to Brendan Dolan, who's also been one of the players of the year so far, in the quarterfinals. And he played well in defeat on 2 of the 3 other days. The only day he didn't seem to have it was the final day, where he just didn't show up against Mike Kuyvenhoven and lost 6 legs to 2. But promising signs from Rob Cross. Nowhere near his best, but his best is world champion. He can still be a level below that and be one of the best players in the world. And we're starting to see more and more signs that Rob Cross is getting back there. I'm not worried. It's going to be a big year for him because he's defending a lot of prize money. But it just needs to keep soldiering on. And if he does, he can keep that spot in the top 16, even defending £200,000 just at the match play and European Championships alone. As far as Glen Durrant, we talked quite a bit about him so far. First player to go through a Premier League campaign without a win ever. But it was sad watching it. I believe he still believes that he can get back to where he was. And it wasn't that long ago that he was lifting the trophy. Right now, you just don't know. He's never been back since having COVID last October. He's never been anywhere near the player he was. And he's gone from being one of the top 10 players in the world, one of the top 5 players in the world, arguably, to in the bottom quartile of players on tour. I want to see how he does next month or the following month at the next set of Pro Tour events. That'll be big for him. He doesn't necessarily need to win one of those, but he needs to get a couple runs together and start winning some matches again, because he just went an entire Premier League campaign without any and then skipped the Super Series in Germany. But to get some wins under his belt, to just start throwing well again and to get confidence that he's throwing well again is the key thing. And until we see that, it's tough to even guess what's next for him.
And I'll start in the other direction then. I'll start with Glen Durrant. And as you say, a lot has been said about Glen over the last few weeks. And like you, it was difficult to watch him in the Premier League play at that level, considering how well he played last year on his way to winning the title. But just looking at the final stats and his average across the 9 games that he played, 86, is at this level in the Premier League is just not going to cut it. And unfortunately, that's how his game's gone. It has dropped to that level. The only thing really for him was elimination. And you can say, was it better that he played in these 2 blocks? You had the 5 nights back-to-back and then the 4 nights back-to-back, or would it have been better to have played 8 to 9 weeks, Thursdays across those 2 months and gone through those 9 defeats? So I don't know what would have been the better way, but it's out of the way now. He's out of the Premier League and he's got a long time. He didn't play in the Super Series, just gone in Germany. He decided to skip that one, and he's got the best part now of 7 weeks, best part of 2 months now, break to get ready and prepare himself for this next lot of Super Series, the couple that we've got before the World Match Play. And of course he will be in the World Match Play, but it's now about getting himself somewhere back to that form. It's going to be difficult for him. We had him on the show just before the start of the Premier League, and he was saying he had a list of things that he was going through to try and get himself back to that form. His throw, different other things away from darts that he was looking at. And one of the things that he mentioned as well is that Peter Wright's offered him to come and stay at his home and have a practice in the lead up to the World Match Play. That could maybe be something that works for me. It certainly works for Dimitri Vandenberg anyway, but it's going to be a tough road for him. But we'll see. He's a player that's got a lot of determination. I think it's just a case of getting that throw back to where it was before and getting some confidence back in his game, because that is something that has been lacking in this Premier League going over to Rob Cross 2 years in a row now that he's been eliminated from the Premier League. But I think this one, he can take a lot more positives from than the one last year, can't he? And you've spoken about it on here, about how difficult 2020 was for him, a lot of changes that he had with his management and other things. But it does look like he is coming back into some form. And okay, he's not back at the level that he was in his first year in the PDC on the main circuit, but there's some good signs for him, I think. And okay, he's a lot to defend, as is well documented now this year. If he'd have had a bit more luck, I guess we'd be talking about someone else being eliminated. There were 2 games in particular. You mentioned the Gary Anderson game. He had darts to get a point out of that game, I think. And the Peter Wright game, he was 5-3 up, had darts to get a point in that one, ends up losing 7-5. If he gets a point in either of those games, we're talking about Rob Cross in the second phase of this Premier League, and we're talking about Gary Anderson being the player eliminated. So he's very close, I think, to getting back to the form that will get him through that first phase of the Premier League and into the second phase. But that's a long way off now. It's all about the ranking events and making sure that his ranking doesn't drop too much over the next 8 months.